Hey guys, tonight we are doing something deeply ambitious and only slightly unreasonable. 100 facts about sleep. A subject so universal that every human being participates in it. And yet somehow, most of us still treat it like a minor side quest. We postpone it, negotiate with it, sabotage it with glowing rectangles, and then act surprised when the body responds like a disappointed landlord. So for the next stretch of time, we are going to move slowly through the strange, ordinary, faintly ridiculous world of sleep. And yes, before we drift too far into the blankets of science and soft biological confusion, hai no and sub nu bon tich kio ke chuyen buon ngunai. Quietly, no sudden movements. Sleep would hate that. Fact number 1, you do not simply turn off when you sleep. Sleep is not a power outage. It is an active biological state, full of cycling brain activity, hormone shifts, tissue repair, memory processing, immune regulation, and other invisible maintenance tasks that your body performs without consulting your calendar. The body, in short, runs a night shift. Fact number 2, sleep comes in stages. It is not one flat, featureless state where nothing interesting happens. You move through non-REM sleep and REM sleep in repeating cycles throughout the night. Each stage does different work, like a quiet, slightly underpaid staff rotating through a factory that manufactures your continued existence. Fact number 3, non-REM sleep has multiple depths. Early in the night, you tend to get more deep, slow-wave sleep, which is especially important for physical restoration. Later in the night, REM sleep takes up a larger share. So when someone says they only need a few hours, what they are often doing is casually chopping pieces off a process that was designed with some care. Fact number 4, REM stands for rapid eye movement. During this stage, your eyes dart around behind closed lids. Your brain becomes highly active, and vivid dreaming is more likely. It sounds energetic, and in some ways, it is. Yet your muscles are largely paralyzed during REM, so you do not act out every bizarre thing your dreaming brain comes up with, which is probably for the best. Fact number 5, dreams are not exclusive to REM sleep. People can dream in non-REM stages too. REM dreams are just more vivid, emotional, and narratively strange, which is a gentle academic way of saying they are more likely to involve impossible architecture, a former classmate, and a deeply urgent but unexplained need to find a train. Fact number 6, your brain is not resting in the lazy sense during sleep. Some regions become less active, yes, but others are remarkably busy. Sleep is not the brain taking a vacation. It is more like the brain closing the front office so the cleaning crew, archivists, and repair technicians can begin muttering in the back room. Fact number 7, your internal body clock is called the circadian rhythm. It runs on roughly a 24-hour cycle and influences sleep, alertness, body temperature, hormone release, digestion, and more. Roughly is important because it is not perfectly 24 hours on its own. Light helps reset it daily. Fact number 8, the master clock that helps coordinate this rhythm sits in the brain, in a region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a name that sounds like a Roman official who would tax your grain supply, but is in fact a tiny cluster of neurons that pays close attention to light. Fact number 9, light is one of the most powerful signals affecting sleep timing. Morning light helps tell your body it is daytime. Evening light, especially bright artificial light, can delay sleepiness. Humanity spent millennia under sun, fire, moon, and occasional existential dread. Then we invented overhead LEDs and asked the brain to remain dignified. Fact number 10. Melatonin is not a knockout chemical. It does not sedate you like a theatrical club to the head. It is more like a signal that darkness has arrived and the body should begin preparing for biological night. It helps with timing more than force. Fact number 11. Your sleep drive is separate from your circadian rhythm. One system tracks how long you have been awake and builds pressure for sleep. The other helps determine when sleep should happen. One says, "You are tired?" The other says, "This is an appropriate hour for the collapse." Fact number 12. The chemical adenosine is part of that sleep pressure system. As you stay awake, adenosine builds up in the brain and contributes to the feeling of sleepiness. During sleep, it clears. It is the quiet accumulation of fatigue, like dishes in a sink or administrative resentment in a small office. Fact number 13. Caffeine works in part by blocking adenosine receptors. It does not remove tiredness. It puts a polite sign over the tiredness that says, "Closed for renovation." The tiredness is still in the building. Fact number 14. That is one reason caffeine can feel so effective and then so treacherous. When its effects wear off, the adenosine that was waiting patiently may become noticeable again. This is often referred to by normal people as, "Why am I suddenly a ghost at 3 p.m.?" Fact number 15. Alcohol may make some people fall asleep faster, but it tends to disrupt sleep quality later in the night. It can fragment sleep, reduce REM, and worsen breathing problems such as snoring or sleep apnea. It is therefore not the sophisticated bedtime solution some people imagine. It is more of a sleepy saboteur in a glass. Fact number 16. Adults generally need around 7 to 9 hours of sleep, though individual variation exists. There are people who claim to function brilliantly on 4 or 5 hours. A few rare individuals truly can. Many more are merely functioning badly with confidence. Fact number 17. Teenagers tend to have later circadian timing than younger children or many adults. Their bodies naturally shift toward falling asleep and waking up later. This is not always laziness. Sometimes it is biology in a hoodie. Fact number 18. Older adults often experience changes in sleep patterns too. They may get sleepier earlier, wake earlier, experience lighter sleep, or wake more frequently during the night. Aging does not mean sleep becomes unnecessary. It means sleep may become more fragmented, which is a far less enjoyable arrangement. Fact number 19. Newborns sleep a lot, but not in the tidy nighttime block adults long for. Infant sleep is distributed across day and night because circadian systems are still developing. Babies, in this sense, live outside normal time and answer to older laws. Fact number 20. Sleep helps consolidate memory. Some experiences and information become more stable in the brain after sleep. It is not magic, it is processing. Learn something, sleep, and your odds of retaining it improve. Pull an all-nighter, and you may end up studying directly against your own biology, which is a bold choice. Fact number 21. Different types of memory may benefit from different stages of sleep. Deep non-REM sleep is linked to certain forms of declarative memory like facts and information. REM sleep appears important for emotional memory, creativity, and some forms of procedural learning. In other words, your sleeping brain is sorting not just what happened, but perhaps what to do with it. Fact number 22. Sleep deprivation affects attention quickly. You may think you are mostly fine, just a little tired. Meanwhile, your sustained attention, reaction time, judgment, and emotional balance may be quietly fraying like a cheap curtain in seaside weather. Fact number 23. Microsleeps can occur when you are very sleep deprived. These are brief episodes, sometimes only seconds long, during which the brain slips into sleep-like states. Your eyes may remain open. You may believe you were awake the whole time. The road, naturally, prefers a stricter definition of consciousness. Fact number 24. Driving while sleepy can be extremely dangerous. Fatigue impairs reaction time and attention, and in severe cases can rival the impairment associated with alcohol. The difference is that exhausted people often feel morally superior while weaving between lanes. Fact number 25. Sleep loss affects mood. Even one poor night can make people more irritable, less patient, less emotionally resilient, and more likely to interpret small annoyances as profound betrayals. Suddenly, the spoon falls on the floor, and it feels like history has ended. Fact number 26. Chronic sleep deprivation has been linked to a range of health problems, including increased risk for cardiovascular disease, metabolic dysfunction, depression, weakened immune response, and more. Sleep is not a decorative wellness habit. It is infrastructure. Fact number 27. Your immune system uses sleep. During sleep, the body supports immune regulation and recovery. This is one reason you often feel sleepy when sick. The body does not send you to bed because it is being dramatic. It is reallocating resources. Fact number 28. Vaccine responses can also be influenced by sleep. Some research suggests that insufficient sleep around vaccination can reduce the strength of immune responses. Even your antibodies, it seems, would prefer that you stop scrolling and lie down. Fact number 29. Sleep and metabolism are closely linked. Poor sleep can affect hunger hormones, appetite, insulin sensitivity, and food choices. Tired people often crave more calorie-dense foods. This is not a moral failure. It is a sleep-deprived organism making fast energy calculations with the elegance of a raccoon near a bakery. Fact number 30. The hormones leptin and ghrelin are often mentioned here. Leptin helps signal fullness, while ghrelin is associated with hunger. Sleep restriction can disrupt their balance, which may increase appetite. Your body, deprived of rest, begins asking for pastries as compensation. Fact number 31. Body temperature plays a role in sleep. Your core temperature tends to drop as you approach sleep, and a cooler bedroom can support this process for many people. Not an Arctic research station, just cool enough that your body does not feel like it is trying to sleep inside a casserole. Fact number 32. Warm baths or showers before bed can sometimes help with sleep onset. Oddly enough, warming the skin can assist the body's later cooling process. Biology is full of these mild contradictions, where the route to cooler sleep begins with politely increasing warmth. Fact number 33. Exercise can improve sleep, though timing may matter for some individuals. Regular physical activity is generally associated with better sleep quality. But intense exercise too close to bedtime may leave some people feeling more alert. The body occasionally mistakes, "I have done wellness," for "perhaps now we fight." Fact number 34. Not everyone has the same chronotype. Some people naturally lean earlier, some later. Terms like lark and owl capture these tendencies. Society, unfortunately, often assumes one schedule fits all, as though the entire population were designed by a particularly stern headmaster. Fact number 35. Social jet lag happens when your social schedule and biological schedule do not line up. For example, waking very early on weekdays and sleeping much later on weekends can feel like repeated time zone changes without the glamour of travel or the tiny soap. Fact number 36. Sleep inertia is the groggy, impaired state you can feel after waking, especially from deep sleep. In that phase, you may be awake in the legal sense but not yet fully operational. Many emails should be protected from this period. Fact number 37. Snoozing alarms can make waking feel even more miserable for some people. Those repeated fragments of sleep are often too short and too shallow to feel restorative, yet just long enough to restart your suffering in smaller chapters. Fact number 38. The first sleep cycle of the night is not identical to the last. Early cycles usually contain more deep, non-REM sleep, while later cycles often include longer REM periods. This is why cutting the end of your sleep short can reduce dreaming-rich REM, while cutting the beginning short may reduce deep physical restoration. Sleep, infuriatingly, was engineered as a complete set. Fact number 39. Dreams can help process emotion. This does not mean every dream has a symbolic key that unlocks your soul if interpreted correctly by a man in a scarf. But dreaming may play a role in emotional integration and memory processing. Fact number 40. Some dreams are mundane. Not every dream is a cosmic message. Sometimes your brain simply produces a budget imitation of reality with small errors. You go to work, but the office is also a train station. Your dentist is there for administrative reasons. No further explanation is provided. Fact number 41. Nightmares are common. They are more frequent in childhood, but can occur at any age. Stress, trauma, medications, illness, sleep deprivation, and other factors can all influence their occurrence. Sleep, despite its reputation, occasionally screens difficult material. Fact number 42. Recurring dreams are also common. The brain seems capable of reusing themes with modest adjustments, much like television writers under deadline. The teeth falling out dream, the being late dream, the exam you never studied for dream. Apparently, consciousness has a syndication model. Fact number 43. Lucid dreaming is the experience of becoming aware that you are dreaming while still in the dream. Some people can even influence the dream's events. This is perhaps the closest the average person gets to being both audience and management. Fact number 44. Sleep paralysis can happen during transitions into or out of sleep. A person may feel awake but unable to move, sometimes with vivid hallucinations. It can be terrifying, especially if unexpected. Historically, it has inspired many supernatural interpretations. Understandably, temporary REM atonia plus hallucinations is scientifically accurate but less compelling than a shadow sat on my chest. Fact number 45. Hypnic jerks are those sudden muscle twitches or falling sensations some people experience as they drift off. They are common and usually harmless. One moment you are descending into sleep, the next your body throws a brief objection as if to say, just checking whether we meant it. Fact number 46. Some people talk in their sleep. Sleep talking can range from mumbling to full sentences. Most of it is not profound. Your unconscious, given a microphone, rarely becomes a philosopher. Often it becomes an annoyed cashier. Fact number 47, sleepwalking tends to occur during deep non-REM sleep, often in the first part of the night. It is more common in children, though adults can do it too. A sleepwalking person is not usually acting out a dream in cinematic style. They are in a partial arousal state, neither fully asleep nor properly awake. Fact number 48, REM sleep behavior disorder is different. In this condition, the usual muscle paralysis of REM sleep is absent or incomplete, so people may physically act out dreams. This can be dangerous and deserves medical attention. The brain, having lost the do not perform sign, lets the night production spill into the room. Fact number 49. Snoring is common, but not always harmless. It can be simple vibration of tissues during sleep, yet loud, frequent snoring can also be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea. The difference matters. One is irritating. The other can be medically serious while also being irritating. Fact number 50. Obstructive sleep apnea involves repeated collapse or blockage of the airway during sleep, leading to breathing pauses, oxygen drops, and fragmented sleep. People may not remember waking, but their sleep architecture certainly does. The result can be daytime sleepiness, headaches, cardiovascular strain, and the sense of having slept without obtaining the advertised benefits. Fact number 51. Not everyone with sleep apnea looks the same. While weight is a risk factor, airway anatomy, age, sex, muscle tone, alcohol use, and other factors matter too. Sleep disorders rarely read the simplistic pamphlet. Fact number 52. Insomnia is not just not sleeping enough. It usually involves difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or waking too early, along with daytime consequences. It can be acute or chronic, and perhaps most cruelly, it is often worsened by trying very hard to sleep, because sleep does not respond well to managerial pressure. Fact number 53. Anxiety about sleep can become part of insomnia itself. A person starts worrying about not sleeping, which increases arousal, which makes sleep less likely, which increases worry. In this way, the bed becomes a performance stage for fear. The mattress did not ask for this role. Fact number 54. Cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, often called CBT1, is one of the most effective treatments for chronic insomnia. It targets behaviors and thought patterns that perpetuate the problem. This is not as glamorous as a magical tea or a violet-colored lamp, but it has the inconvenient advantage of evidence. Fact number 55. Naps can help, but they are not neutral. Short naps may improve alertness and mood. Long naps or late naps can interfere with nighttime sleep for some people. A nap is a diplomatic instrument. Used wisely, it restores civilization. Used recklessly, it destabilizes the regime. Fact number 56. There is a reason a 10 or 20-minute nap can feel different from a 90-minute one. The shorter nap may reduce sleepiness without pulling you too deep into slow-wave sleep, while a longer nap may include a fuller cycle. Either can be useful depending on circumstances, but waking from the wrong stage can leave you feeling like wet cardboard. Fact number 57. Memory reactivation appears to occur during sleep. The brain seems to replay or strengthen aspects of prior experiences. So yes, in a quiet way, your sleeping brain may revisit the day. It is not gossiping, it is filing. Fact number 58. Sleep also supports learning motor skills. Practice a sequence, sleep and performance can improve. Musicians, athletes, surgeons, typists, and others all benefit from the peculiar truth that doing nothing with your eyes closed is sometimes an essential part of getting better. Fact number 59. Children who sleep well often show better regulation, learning, behavior, and health outcomes. This is why tired children can transform so quickly from angelic curiosity to miniature constitutional crisis. Their systems are still developing, and sleep loss hits hard. Fact number 60. The brain has a waste clearance system that appears more active during sleep. One of the most discussed ideas here is the glymphatic system, which may help clear metabolic byproducts from the brain. In effect, sleep may aid the brain's housekeeping. Even neurons require sanitation. Fact number 61. Some studies suggest that sleep helps with problem-solving and creativity. A difficult issue may seem clearer after a night's sleep. This does not mean the brain solves everything by moonlight, but it does mean that conscious effort is not the whole story. Sometimes the answer arrives after you stop interrogating it. Fact number 62. People often underestimate how impaired they are by chronic partial sleep deprivation. Performance worsens, but subjective sleepiness may plateau. You feel sort of adapted. You are not. You have simply become accustomed to operating below your own standards, which is one of the least festive tricks biology can play. Fact number 63. One bad night of sleep does not ruin a life. The body is resilient, but repeated insufficient sleep matters. It is the difference between one storm and long-term erosion. We are shaped not only by disasters, but by habits performed in dim rooms. Fact number 64. Sleeping pills are not all the same, and medications for sleep can have benefits, risks, side effects, and dependence concerns. They should not be treated as decorative candy from a moon-shaped dish. Sleep medicine deserves careful use and medical guidance. Fact number 65. Many sleep hacks marketed online are either exaggerated or unsupported. The internet loves certainty, especially when wrapped in bamboo fabric and sold at a discount. Actual sleep science is useful, but rarely dramatic. It tends to say maddeningly sensible things like keep a consistent schedule and reduce bright light at night. Fact number 66. Consistency matters. Going to bed and waking up at roughly similar times helps stabilize circadian rhythms. The body likes rhythm more than heroics. Sleeping 12 hours on Sunday will not fully negotiate with 5 hours all week. Fact number 67. The bedroom environment matters. Light, noise, temperature, comfort, and even associations with the space can influence sleep. A room that is too hot, too bright, too noisy, or emotionally linked to work and panic may not deliver the tender neutrality sleep prefers. Fact number 68. Blue-enriched light in the evening can delay the circadian system for some people because of how it affects the brain's light-sensitive pathways. This does not mean all problems come from one color and can be solved by glasses sold by confident men with podcasts. But evening light exposure does matter. Fact number 69. Morning light can be particularly helpful for setting the clock. Even modest outdoor light is often far brighter than indoor lighting. This is one reason a morning walk can help regulate sleep timing. The sun remains a very old and surprisingly competent device. Fact number 70. Some people are more vulnerable to sleep disruption than others. Genetics play a role in sleep timing, duration, sensitivity to deprivation, and sleep disorder risk. So, when one person drinks an espresso at 8 p.m. and sleeps beautifully while another stares at the ceiling until 2 a.m., biology is not being fair, only itself. Fact number 71. Menstruation, pregnancy, menopause, and hormonal shifts can all influence sleep. Bodies do not run one simple program. Across the lifespan, hormones shape temperature, breathing, mood, pain, and circadian tendencies in ways that can complicate sleep considerably. Fact number 72. Pain and sleep affect each other. Poor sleep can heighten pain sensitivity, and pain can interrupt sleep. This can create another difficult loop where discomfort causes wakefulness, and wakefulness lowers the threshold for discomfort. The body occasionally enjoys building circles. Fact number 73. Depression and sleep are closely connected. Depression can lead to insomnia, early waking, oversleeping, or fragmented sleep. And sleep problems can also increase the risk or severity of depression. Mental health and sleep are not separate apartments. They share a wall. Fact number 74. Stress hormones such as cortisol follow daily rhythms too. In healthy patterns, cortisol tends to rise toward morning and decline later in the day. Chronic stress, however, can disturb these rhythms and keep the body more activated at night, which is not ideal when your stated goal is horizontal unconsciousness. Fact number 75. Evolution did not make sleep optional, despite the obvious risks of lying still and unconscious for hours. The fact that sleep exists across so many species, despite vulnerability, suggests it is profoundly important. Nature examined the dangers and said, yes, but this maintenance cycle remains mandatory. Fact number 76. Animals sleep in very different ways. Some mammals sleep in short bursts, some birds can sleep with half the brain at a time, and marine mammals may do extraordinary things with unihemispheric sleep. Humans, meanwhile, struggle because the curtain is too thin and someone texted, "You up?" Fact number 77. Dolphins are famous for sleeping with one hemisphere of the brain at a time. This allows them to keep surfacing for air. It is an impressive adaptation and one that office culture should not attempt to imitate. Fact number 78. Giraffes sleep very little compared with many mammals, while bats sleep a great deal. The animal kingdom contains broad variation, which should reduce your confidence in drawing moral lessons from any one species. Bats sleep 20 hours is not career advice. Fact number 79. Bears in hibernation are not exactly just taking an extended nap. Hibernation is a distinct physiological state, far more complex than normal sleep. Still, one can understand why the concept has public appeal. Fact number 80. Your sleeping position can affect comfort, snoring, reflux, pain, and even skin pressure. Side sleeping may help some snorers. Back sleeping may worsen airway collapse in certain people. Stomach sleeping can strain the neck. There is, regrettably, no universally perfect posture ordained by the stars. Fact number 81. Reflux can worsen when lying down. Late heavy meals, alcohol, and certain conditions may contribute. For some people, adjusting meal timing, sleeping position, or bed elevation can help. Your digestive system, too, has opinions about bedtime scheduling. Fact number 82. Hunger can also interfere with sleep. A very empty stomach may keep some people awake, while large meals can do the same. As with many things in biology, moderation is less exciting than extremes and more useful. Fact number 83. Screen time before bed is not just about light. Content matters too. Emotional stimulation, work stress, news doom, competitive games, and the peculiar self-hypnosis of endless short videos can all increase arousal. The nervous system does not always distinguish between important threat and mildly upsetting internet trivia. Fact number 84. Rituals before bed can help cue sleep. Reading, dimming lights, washing up, stretching, or repeating familiar steps can create a kind of behavioral runway. Humans are surprisingly trainable when treated gently and consistently, like cats, but with invoices. Fact number 85. You cannot force sleep directly. You can only create conditions more favorable to it. This is one of sleep's most annoying and revealing facts. It arrives best when invited, not cornered. Desperation is famously poor bedding. Fact number 86. When you lie awake for long periods in bed, the brain can begin associating the bed with wakefulness and frustration rather than sleep. This is one reason behavioral insomnia treatments sometimes recommend getting up for a while if you are wide awake. The goal is to preserve the bed's reputation. Fact number 87. Jet lag occurs because your internal clock is out of sync with the local time after rapid travel across time zones. Light exposure, sleep timing, and sometimes melatonin can help shift the body, but adaptation takes time. Your liver, heart, and intestine do not care that your boarding pass says otherwise. Fact number 88. Eastward travel often feels harder than westward travel because advancing the body clock can be more difficult than delaying it. The body finds sleep later easier than sleep earlier, which is not admirable, but is consistent with many modern habits. Fact number 89. Shift workers face especially difficult sleep challenges because their required schedule can conflict profoundly with circadian biology. This can affect sleep duration, alertness, long-term health, and social life. Society relies heavily on night work while quietly pretending the human body was designed for it. Fact number 90. There is no single perfect bedtime for everyone. The best bedtime depends on your chronotype, age, obligations, and desired wake time. Go to bed at 10 p.m. is not a universal commandment etched in stone tablets by a sleepy prophet. Fact number 91. However, regular wake time may be even more important than regular bedtime for stabilizing your clock. Waking at wildly different hours teaches the body inconsistency. Sleeping in can feel glorious, but it can also nudge the rhythm later, especially in those prone to delayed sleep. Fact number 92. Sleep quality is not measured only by time. 8 hours of fragmented sleep is not the same as 8 hours of consolidated sleep. Duration matters, architecture matters, and subjective restoration matters. Sleep is both quantity and craftsmanship. Fact number 93. Some people wake in the middle of the night and assume something is terribly wrong. Sometimes it is a problem. But brief awakenings can be normal. Humans do not necessarily sleep like anesthetized statues. The issue is often whether you return to sleep and how restored you feel overall. Fact number 94. There is historical discussion of segmented sleep, in which people in certain pre-industrial contexts may have had a first sleep and second sleep with a quiet period in between. The exact extent and universality are debated, but the idea reminds us that modern expectations of one seamless block may not be the only human pattern ever known. Fact number 95. Still, contemporary life usually rewards consolidated nighttime sleep. Whatever our ancestors did by candlelight, most employers continue to prefer that you not hold reflective vigils between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. on Tuesday. Fact number 96. Waking naturally without an alarm can be a sign that sleep needs are being met and timing is well aligned, though life does not always permit this luxury. The alarm clock remains one of civilization's bluntest instruments. A small square argument with dawn. Fact number 97. Dreams are often forgotten quickly because the transition into wakefulness does not always preserve them well. You may have several dreams a night and remember none. Entire bizarre epics vanish before breakfast. The mind writes in water. Fact number 98. Some medications, illnesses, and neurological conditions can alter dreaming, sleep stage distribution, or wakefulness. Sleep is not isolated from the rest of medicine. It is threaded through nearly everything, which is inconvenient for specialists and very interesting for everyone else. Fact number 99. Perhaps the most important broad fact is that sleep is not wasted time. It is productive in a biological sense, even when outwardly nothing is happening. Our culture often admires visible output and resents invisible restoration. Yet, your best waking self is built partly in the hours no one sees. And fact number 100. Nearly every person on earth has had a difficult relationship with sleep at some point. A bad night, a racing mind, a body that would not settle, an early alarm, a season of stress, a dream too vivid, a room too hot, a mind too loud. Sleep is universal, but it is not always easy. That may be why learning about it can feel oddly comforting. The process is ancient, intricate, and bigger than our nightly frustrations. Under all the schedules, habits, lights, anxieties, naps, alarms, tea, regret, and expensive pillows, there remains this very old rhythm, a body trying every night to repair itself in the dark. So, if your own sleep has ever felt messy, inconsistent, mysterious, or faintly personal in its cruelty, welcome to the species. Your brain is not broken simply because it sometimes behaves like a nervous archivist sorting papers during a storm. Sleep is complex. It responds to light, food, stress, habit, hormones, illness, timing, environment, age, and the unfortunate existence of modern life. Yet it also remains trainable, influenceable, and worth respecting. A gentler room, steadier schedule, less late caffeine, more morning light, less midnight doom scrolling, a little patience, a little realism, not perfection, just fewer small betrayals. And maybe that is the sleepy comfort in all of this. Sleep is not a moral test. It is not proof of discipline, virtue, or superiority. It is a biological process, delicate in some seasons and reliable in others, quietly stitching your waking life back together night after night. You close your eyes, and an entire hidden infrastructure begins. Memories sorted, hormones shifted, tissues repaired, immune signals coordinated, emotions softened at the edges, waste cleared, dreams staged, absurd images projected, and somewhere in the middle of it all, the simple old miracle of rest being attempted again. So tonight, when the room dims and the body begins making its familiar descent, you might remember that sleep is not empty darkness. It is a workshop, a laboratory, a library after closing, a night train carrying pieces of you from one day into the next. Slow, repetitive, profoundly unglamorous, and absolutely essential, which in a way makes it one of the most human things we do. And because it is so human, people have spent centuries misunderstanding it in wonderfully committed ways. Ancient cultures, philosophers, physicians, monks, soldiers, factory owners, overworked students, tired parents, and modern executives with suspiciously bright teeth have all had theories about sleep. Some treated it as sacred, some treated it as weakness, some tried to master it, some tried to eliminate as much of it as possible, which is a bit like boasting that you have found a way to drive a carriage with fewer wheels. Technically bold, mechanically unwise. For a long time, sleep looked passive from the outside, and that caused trouble. If a person lay there motionless, eyes closed, doing nothing that could be entered into an account book, it was tempting to assume that nothing meaningful was happening. But science, in its usual irritating way, eventually arrived with instruments and graphs and quietly said, actually, the sleeping brain is extremely busy. Not busy in the glamorous sense. No one is winning awards down there, but busy in the sense that the organism is maintaining itself with a seriousness that waking life rarely appreciates. One of the more humbling truths about sleep is that you can ignore it for a while, but you cannot negotiate with it indefinitely. People try, of course. They speak of catching up later as if sleep were an email. They claim to be fine after short nights, as if the frontal lobes were optional accessories. They run on caffeine, panic, and theatrical self-belief, and for a time, the body does what bodies often do. It compensates, quietly, unevenly, at a cost that is not always visible in the moment. That hidden cost is one reason sleep is so difficult to respect. The effects of too little sleep are often subtle before they are dramatic. You do not always collapse onto a keyboard. You just become a slightly worse version of yourself. Less patient, less sharp, more impulsive, more likely to reread the same line 3 times and still absorb nothing except a vague hostility toward fonts. Your jokes become poorer. Your emotional weather becomes unstable. You begin treating minor administrative inconveniences like Gothic tragedy. And because the decline is gradual, it can start to feel normal. This is where sleep becomes strangely philosophical. It asks a question the modern world does not much enjoy. What if restoration is not laziness but part of the work? What if doing well depends not only on effort but on periodic surrender? What if the body is not a machine to be pushed until sparking, but a living system with rhythms, thresholds, and the discourteous habit of needing care? It is not a fashionable message. It does not look good in a triumphant poster. Lie down in darkness and become temporarily unavailable lacks the hard edge of a productivity slogan. But biology is rarely interested in branding. Sleep also exposes how much of our daily experience depends on states we barely notice until they go wrong. Mood, patience, memory, appetite, pain, tolerance, immune resilience, reaction time, focus, even our ability to interpret another person's face accurately, these all shift with sleep. And because they belong to the ordinary fabric of life, they are easy to take for granted. We notice the coffee. We notice the deadline. We notice the headache. We notice that everyone seems irrational. We do not always notice that the thread connecting half the day's problems may have begun the previous night. There is something almost comic in this. People will spend enormous sums on tiny upgrades to waking life. Ergonomic chairs, supplements in artisanal jars, expensive lamps, increasingly specific water bottles, little wearable objects that produce graphs with the moral tone of a Victorian governess. Meanwhile, one of the most powerful things that improves human functioning remains an old-fashioned arrangement involving darkness, time, and a horizontal position. It feels offensively simple, Naturally, this makes many people suspicious. Of course, simplicity does not mean ease. If sleep were easy, the world would contain fewer articles with titles like "Why Can't I Sleep?" and more people who regarded bedtime as a peaceful descent rather than a nightly legal dispute with consciousness. Modern life is not built kindly around sleep. It asks for early alarms, late screens, round-the-clock connectivity, unstable work patterns, bright cities, social obligations, economic anxiety, travel, noise, and the constant low hum of available information. The species evolved in one environment and now attempts sleep inside another with mixed results. Consider the bedroom itself. For most of human history, sleep environments were not designed according to a neuroscience-informed catalog. They were often cold, communal, noisy, uncomfortable, drafty, dirty, or full of livestock opinions. And yet modern sleep has its own problems. We have softer mattresses and climate control, yes, but also notifications, streetlight glow, entertainment on demand, unresolved email, and the strange modern custom of bringing the entire world's argument into bed through a rectangular pane of light. We improved the pillow and invited the apocalypse under the blanket. This is partly why bedtime routines help. Not because humans are delicate flowers who require a ceremonial teaspoon and moon music, though some seem to enjoy that framing. They help because the nervous system responds to pattern. Repetition reduces uncertainty. Dim lights, familiar actions, lowered stimulation, and consistent timing all tell the body that wakeful demands are ending. It is a gentle handoff from the public self to the private machinery of night. Brush teeth, wash face, put things down. Let the day lose some of its authority. A great deal of sleep difficulty comes from failing to make that handoff. Physically, one may be in bed. Neurologically, the meeting is still ongoing. The argument is still active. The shopping list is suddenly urgent. A humiliating conversation from 7 years ago demands review. The future appears before the mind in abstract administrative fragments. Sleep cannot begin because waking has not actually ended. The body is lying down, but the self is still standing in a corridor with papers. This is why boredom, strangely enough, can be useful. Sleep and boredom are not identical, but they are cousins. Both require a reduction in external stimulation. Both ask the mind to tolerate a little emptiness. And many modern people have become very bad at this. Silence now feels suspicious. Stillness feels wasteful. A pause demands to be filled. Yet sleep begins not with excitement, but with enough safety and enough monotony that the brain loosens its grip. In that sense, bedtime is one of the last remaining invitations to be unproductive without apology. Children often understand this badly and perfectly at the same time. They resist sleep with dramatic commitment, then fall asleep in a car, on a couch, under a table, or halfway through an objection. Adults do something similar, only with more internal narration. We tell ourselves we are not tired. We begin one more episode, one more task, one more article, one more pointless arrangement of tomorrow. Then we wake with a phone on our face and discover that biology had made the decision without consulting the ego. Sleep, in the end, is often less persuaded than simply allowed in. The history of medicine's relationship with sleep is also revealing. Once researchers began measuring brain waves with electroencephalography, or EEG, sleep ceased to be just a visible behavior and became something with structure. Waves slowed, patterns changed, stages emerged. People could watch, not in a poetic sense, but in a graph-lined laboratory sense, the sleeping brain moved through repeating cycles. There was a certain demystification in this, but also a fresh kind of awe. What looked like stillness was layered. The mind at night had architecture. And what architecture? Light sleep, deep sleep, REM, repeated, reordered, proportioned differently across the night, across age, across circumstance. A night of sleep is not one long tunnel, but a procession of chambers. Some restore the body more heavily. Some bring dreams. Some seem involved in memory and emotion and repair. Cut sleep short, and you do not just lose minutes, you lop off pieces of that architecture. It is not unlike leaving a symphony after the first movement and later claiming you heard the whole thing. Then there is the matter of dreams, which remain one of sleep's great public relation successes. Ask ordinary people about sleep, and they may not know much about sleep spindles, circadian phase shifts, or the adenosine system. They do know dreams. Dreams are the theater of sleep, its absurd in-house cinema, its most memorable export. And because dreams are often vivid, emotional, embarrassing, or impossible, people grant them a significance they do not always grant the less glamorous truths of sleep hygiene or respiratory health. Dreams invite interpretation because they feel unlike ordinary thought. A dream can fuse memory, anxiety, image, language, desire, nonsense, and narrative in ways the waking mind rarely tolerates. A hallway becomes an ocean. A parent becomes a teacher. A childhood home acquires an upstairs that never existed. You are late for something undefined. You find yourself relieved by objects that do not exist. And it all feels correct while it is happening. The dreaming mind is an extraordinary editor of continuity. It does not ask, does this make sense? It asks, can we proceed? Some researchers have explored dreams as emotional processing, some as memory fragments, some as predictive simulations, some as cognitive side effects of neural activity. The truth may involve several things at once. The brain during sleep is not performing a single elegant operation. It is a living system in motion. Dreams may emerge from that motion the way weather emerges from atmosphere, shaped by rules, impossible to reduce entirely to one purpose, meaningful at times, random at others, and fully capable of ruining your mood before breakfast, with a scenario involving an escalator and your old math teacher. People often report that dreams feel more real during emotionally intense periods of life. Stress can do this. Trauma can do this. Illness, medication, hormonal shifts, disrupted sleep schedules, all can color dream life. It is another reminder that sleep is not sealed off from waking existence. The borders are more porous than we pretend. What we carry by day enters the night, not always in recognizable form. Sleep is not escape from life so much as a different medium in which life continues to be metabolized. This matters especially in grief. Grieving people often talk about sleep changing, difficulty falling asleep, waking too early, dreams that feel like visits, dreams that feel like punishments, periods of dead exhaustion followed by nights of restless alertness. The body under sorrow does not keep normal office hours. Sleep in grief can become an unstable space where memory, longing, and physiology meet. It is one reason advice about sleep must be humane. Not every bad sleeper is failing to optimize. Some are carrying more than a bedroom can easily contain. The same gentleness applies to caregivers, new parents, shift workers, people in pain, people with chronic illness, people with unstable housing, people under financial strain, people living through noise, heat, or danger. Sleep advice can sometimes sound offensively serene when offered without context. Make your room quiet and cool is less helpful if you live next to a road, share a room, work nights, or care for a person who wakes unpredictably. Biology is universal. Sleep conditions are not. This is why respect for sleep must include respect for circumstance. Still, even within imperfect circumstances, certain principles remain strangely reliable. Light matters, timing matters, stimulation matters, associations matter. The body learns from repetition. The brain notices patterns. It remembers whether the bed is for rest or rumination. It notices whether mornings begin in darkness or daylight. It notices whether nights are accompanied by snacks, arguments, and episode autoplay. None of this guarantees perfect sleep, but it shapes probabilities. And sleep, more than many people realize, is often a game of probabilities. This is especially true with insomnia. Many insomniacs know facts about sleep more intimately than good sleepers ever do. They can tell you what time they woke, how long it took to fall asleep, which noises occurred at 2:13, the exact angle of moonlight on the wall, and the emotional biography of every pillow they have ever owned. Insomnia often turns sleep into an object of surveillance. The sleeper becomes an auditor. Every awakening is recorded. Every bedtime carries anticipatory dread. Sleep, which requires letting go, is transformed into a monitored task. It is a brutally unfair setup. That is one reason effective treatment often works indirectly. Instead of forcing sleep, it reduces the conditions that keep wakefulness active. It lowers the emotional stakes. It rebuilds trust between body and bed. It interrupts the cycle of trying, failing, fearing, and trying harder. This is not dramatic. No one emerges from CBT-1 holding a glowing amulet. But there is something deeply sane about it. It treats the problem as behavioral and physiological, not moral. Sleep difficulty is not a character flaw. It is a pattern that can often be understood and gently altered. Sleep apnea presents a different form of hidden trouble. Many people imagine that if they are asleep, then at least they are getting rest. But with sleep apnea, breathing repeatedly falters, oxygen levels may drop, the brain is forced into partial arousals, and the night becomes biologically busy in all the wrong ways. A person can spend hours in bed and still wake unrefreshed because the body has been defending the airway instead of receiving consolidated sleep. It is the opposite of restorative. A full night becomes a long series of interruptions that memory may never properly record. This hidden fragmentation helps explain why some people live for years in a fog they assume is normal aging, stress, or personality. They feel tired upon waking. They need naps. They have headaches. They snore loudly or stop breathing. Their partners notice. Their body notices. Their heart notices. But the person themselves may only know that they are weary in a way sleep does not seem to solve. The night, which should restore them, has become a site of repeated internal emergency. Human beings are oddly willing to accept this kind of diminished state if it arrives gradually. That is perhaps one of the darker little themes running through sleep science. We adapt to too little. We adapt to poor quality. We adapt to being slightly dulled, slightly heavier, slightly shorter-tempered, slightly less alive than we might otherwise be. And because life still proceeds, we mistake persistence for health. A body can continue functioning while under-supported. It can continue for quite a long time. But continuation is not the same as thriving. There is also the matter of social prestige. In many environments, sleeping less has been treated as a badge of seriousness. The person who sleeps 5 hours is imagined to be driven, committed, important. The person who sleeps 8 hours risks appearing soft, indulgent, perhaps suspiciously attached to personal dignity. This is absurd, though it remains common. We admire the visible sacrifice and ignore the invisible cost. It is a cultural story, not a scientific one. No neuron has ever become more efficient because its owner announced they were built different. The irony is that many high-level abilities people want, learning, judgment, emotional regulation, creativity, strategic thinking, are not served well by chronic sleep loss. The same culture that praises late-night grind often demands excellence in precisely the domains sleep supports. It wants clear minds from fogged brains. It wants innovation from exhausted nervous systems. It wants empathy from people whose emotional brakes are worn thin. It asks the body for a polished performance while quietly stealing the rehearsal. None of this means every night must be perfect. That fantasy causes its own trouble. Sleep becomes easier when people stop treating it like a delicate porcelain ritual that can be ruined by one wrong breath. A poor night, here and there, is part of being alive. Travel happens. Stress happens. Illness happens. Neighbors acquire furniture at midnight. Children cough. Weather changes. Thoughts misbehave. One restless night is not destiny. The body is resilient and often rebounds. This, too, is worth remembering. Sleep science should not become another source of nighttime anxiety. Instead, it is perhaps better understood as a framework for cooperation. Your body has systems. Those systems respond to signals. Give them clearer signals, and sleep becomes more likely. Give them mixed signals, and sleep becomes less predictable. That is not all of it, but it is a lot of it. Morning light says day. Darkness says night. Regular timing says rhythm. A quiet wind down says safety. Endless stimulation says stay alert. Late caffeine says we are, for reasons unknown, still handling this. The body hears more than we think. Food enters this conversation too, though not with the simplistic neatness wellness culture prefers. Some people sleep worse hungry, others sleep worse overfull. Heavy meals close to bed can provoke reflux or discomfort. Too much alcohol can fragment sleep. Too much caffeine too late can delay it. Sugary snacks can produce brief satisfaction followed by restless unease in some people. Sleep is not judged by morality but by physiology. It does not care whether a habit looks virtuous on social media. It cares what the body actually experiences in the dark. Temperature is similarly undramatic and powerful. Many people sleep better in a slightly cool environment because core body temperature naturally falls as sleep approaches. A room that is too warm can make sleep feel sticky, fragmented, difficult to enter. Anyone who has spent a hot night flipping pillows in despair already knows this at a cellular level. The body is trying to descend. Heat keeps handing it forms to fill out. Noise, too, has strange effects. Not all noise is equal. Sudden, irregular sounds tend to disrupt more than steady background sounds. A train you live near may eventually fade into the wallpaper of perception. A random door slam at 2:11 in the morning may feel like a constitutional violation. The brain during sleep is not shut off to the environment. It is selective. It monitors. It decides what matters. That is useful for survival, though less charming, when you live above a man who seems to believe chairs are percussion instruments. This selective monitoring explains another curious thing. People can sleep through some extraordinary conditions and wake instantly to very specific ones. Parents wake to the small cry of their child while ignoring other sounds. A person may sleep through thunder and wake to their own name. The sleeping brain is not absent. It is still sorting signal from noise, threat from irrelevance, relevance from background. Sleep is vulnerability, yes, but not total abandonment of vigilance. Even at rest, some part of us remains on watch. One reason sleep deprivation is so unpleasant is that it compromises exactly these subtle regulatory systems. When tired, the brain becomes worse at filtering, prioritizing, and calibrating. Emotion comes in too loud, distraction enters too easily. Appetite skews, patience thins, minor stressors swell. This can create the strange sense that life itself has become harsher, when in fact, some portion of the harshness is perceptual. The world may be the same, but your nervous system is receiving it without proper buffering. That has implications for relationships too. Tired people misunderstand each other more easily. They read neutral expressions more negatively. They snap faster. They apologize less elegantly. They find compromise less available. There is probably a great deal of relationship advice that could be replaced, at least provisionally, with both of you sleep first and revisit this in daylight. Not because every conflict is imaginary, but because sleep loss can turn manageable frictions into declarations of civilizational collapse. Sleep also changes the felt texture of time. A rested day has space in it. A sleep-deprived day often feels either too slow or too fast, with nothing fitting correctly. Concentration slips, so tasks take longer. Memory weakens, so continuity frays. Reaction time lags, so experience arrives with a faint drag. Meanwhile, fatigue itself can make the mind fixate on getting through rather than actually inhabiting the day. One begins to live in small units of survival, until lunch, until coffee, until evening, until bed. Sleep deprivation shrinks the horizon. By contrast, adequate sleep quietly expands capacity. It does not usually feel euphoric in the dramatic sense. It feels ordinary in a high-quality way. Thoughts connect. Frustrations stay proportional. Hunger behaves more sensibly. Effort costs less. The body feels inhabited rather than hauled around. Yet because this state is subtle, people sometimes fail to attribute it properly. They thank motivation, discipline, the weather, the inspirational notebook. Meanwhile, the night before is standing in the corner, having done half the work without a receipt. Even the immune system participates in this hidden labor. When people are sleep-deprived, they can become more vulnerable to infection. Wound healing can slow. Inflammation may shift. Recovery from illness can feel heavier. Again, none of this is flashy in real time. You do not watch an immune cell yawn. But the cumulative effect matters. Sleep is one of the basic conditions under which repair becomes easier. Deny it repeatedly, and the body must conduct maintenance under poorer circumstances, like a city repairing bridges during constant traffic. Athletes know some of this, or at least the better ones do. Training is not only stress applied to the body, it is stress recovered from. Skill acquisition, reaction time, tissue repair, hormone balance, mood, and pain tolerance all intersect with sleep. The idea that one becomes stronger by working harder while resting less is only partly true. Beyond a point, less sleep undermines the very adaptations training is meant to create. Muscles do not admire your schedule. They respond to biology. Students meet the same paradox. The all-nighter holds tremendous symbolic power. It feels dramatic and committed. Coffee cups accumulate, notes blur. The person is visibly striving, yet memory consolidation and attention both suffer under sleep deprivation. So the student may be sacrificing exactly the process that would help the studied material stabilize. This does not mean no one ever survives an all-nighter. People survive many things. It means the body does not regard dramatic suffering as an efficient learning strategy, however beloved it may be by campus mythology. There is also an economic layer to sleep. The ability to sleep well is unevenly distributed, not biologically but socially. Safety, housing quality, work hours, neighborhood noise, healthcare access, chronic stress, caregiving burden, and job security all shape sleep opportunity. It is easy for wellness discourse to speak as though everyone is one lavender spray away from health. Reality is less scented. Sleep is personal, yes, but also structural. A society that undermines rest and then blames individuals for fatigue is engaging in a very old and very lazy trick. Historically, industrialization intensified this problem by imposing more rigid clock time on human lives. Artificial light extended productive hours. Factory schedules, shift work, time discipline, and wage labor all altered sleep patterns. The body's rhythms increasingly had to answer to external schedules rather than local daylight or household routine. Modern life inherited that arrangement and then digitized it. We are now not only timed by the clock, but reachable by network. Night has been annexed by possibility, and yet night persists. However brightly we illuminate our cities, however aggressively we monetize attention, the body still carries ancient expectations about light and dark, exertion and recovery, safety and vulnerability. It still wants dawn to mean morning. It still wants darkness to mean a lowering of demand. That conflict between biological history and modern environment sits quietly beneath many sleep problems. We do not merely fail to sleep because we are careless. We fail to sleep because the world is often arranged as if the body were a much simpler thing than it is. Take jet lag. It is a vivid demonstration that the body is not fooled by paperwork. You may arrive in another country and declare it 10 p.m. local time, but your circadian system does not salute the passport stamp and instantly comply. It moves more slowly, shifted by light cues, meal timing, behavior, and time. Until it adjusts, you're living partly in two clocks at once, hungry at odd hours, alert when others sleep, sleepy in daylight. A small diplomatic crisis between your brain and geography. Shift work can produce a more chronic version of this conflict. Humans can be awake at night, certainly. Many professions depend on it. But the body often resists full adaptation, especially if the schedule changes frequently or if daylight and social life keep pulling the clock back. This is one reason shift workers may experience higher burdens of fatigue, metabolic disruption, mood difficulty, and sleep fragmentation. The schedule demands one thing, the organism keeps whispering another. Civilization thanks them and then rarely adjusts itself accordingly. Even among those with ordinary daytime schedules, so-called social jet lag is common. You wake early for work, then sleep late on free days. The weekend becomes a mini time zone shift. Monday arrives as a kind of domestic re-entry. This pattern is understandable. People are often paying off fatigue, but it can also keep the sleep schedule unstable. The body prefers a degree of regularity. It enjoys rhythm. It distrusts chaos. Unfortunately, chaos is often more popular. Some people try to solve this with gadgets. Sleep trackers, smart rings, watches, under-mattress sensors, room analyzers, sunrise lamps, white noise devices, blackout shades, weighted blankets, temperature-controlled bedding, and software that tells you, often with clinical disappointment, that your readiness is poor. Some of these tools are genuinely useful. Some help people notice patterns. Some improve comfort. But they also carry a risk, turning sleep into a quantified performance. Once the score matters too much, a person can become anxious about sleeping well enough to satisfy the device. This condition even has a name in some discussions: orthosomnia, the pursuit of perfect sleep data that itself disrupts sleep. There is something darkly funny about this. People lose sleep worrying that the graph says they lost sleep. The tool meant to reassure becomes another evaluator at the foot of the bed. And because consumer tracking is not perfect, it may misclassify stages or create false confidence or false alarm. It can still be helpful in context, but sleep remains an internal biological process, not an exam graded by a wrist. Useful data should serve the sleeper, not haunt them. At the same time, objective measures do matter in medicine. Polysomnography, sleep studies, EEG, oxygen measurements, breathing sensors, limb movement recordings, these can reveal disorders the sleeper cannot perceive directly. Sleep medicine is a reminder that nighttime is not empty from a clinical perspective. Breathing, movement, arousal, rhythm, muscle tone, and neural activity all continue to produce evidence. Illness does not stop when the lights go out. Sometimes it becomes more visible there. Restless leg syndrome, periodic limb movement disorder, narcolepsy, circadian rhythm disorders, parasomnias. Sleep medicine contains an entire taxonomy of ways night can go strangely wrong. Each one is its own story. The person who cannot keep their legs still as sleep approaches. The person who falls asleep suddenly. The person whose clock is consistently delayed far beyond social expectations. The person who acts out dreams. The person whose brain cannot maintain consolidated sleep without internal sabotage. Night is simple only from a distance. Narcolepsy, for example, is not just being very sleepy. It is a neurological disorder of sleep-wake regulation that may involve excessive daytime sleepiness, sudden sleep episodes, sleep paralysis, vivid hallucinations at sleep-wake transitions, and sometimes cataplexy, a sudden loss of muscle tone triggered by emotion. It is one of the conditions that most dramatically shows how the boundaries between sleep and wakefulness can destabilize. We like to think those states are distinct rooms. In narcolepsy, the doors do not always stay closed. Circadian rhythm disorders make a different point. Not everyone's internal timing fits social time. Delayed sleep-wake phase disorder, for instance, can make a person naturally fall asleep and wake much later than desired. They are not refusing the schedule and their biology are misaligned. Telling such a person simply to go to bed earlier is often about as effective as telling winter to occur in August out of civic responsibility. These conditions matter because they protect us from simplistic moral storytelling. Too often, sleep problems are framed as weakness, laziness, poor discipline, or lack of toughness. Sometimes behavior is indeed part of the problem, but often physiology, environment, illness, pain, medication, or work structure play enormous roles. A humane understanding of sleep allows for agency without cruelty. Yes, habits matter. No, not everything is solved by an inspirational bedtime. Age adds another layer. Children need more sleep. Teenagers often shift later. Adults stabilize somewhat. Older adults may wake more often, sleep lighter, go to bed earlier, and rise earlier. Across the lifespan, sleep changes, but its importance does not disappear. If anything, good sleep often becomes more precious with age because health conditions, pain, medication, and circadian shifts may make it harder to achieve. The joke that old people wake at dawn contains a grain of biology inside a loaf of stereotype. It is also interesting how sleep marks stages of life culturally. Babies are discussed in terms of whether they sleep through the night, as though this were their chief moral and civic function. Teenagers are accused of sleeping too much. University students perform sleep deprivation like theater. Young professionals boast about little sleep until their bodies begin submitting formal complaints. New parents speak of sleep in tones usually reserved for lost empires. Middle age rediscovers it as health infrastructure. Older age negotiates with it as it fragments. Sleep accompanies the whole lifespan like an old, demanding, necessary friend. And because it is always there, it acquires meaning. We describe death as sleep. We describe peace as sleeping well. We describe innocence as sleeping like a baby, despite all available evidence that babies sleep like tiny erratic managers. We say we need to sleep on a decision. We say ideas come to us in dreams. We speak of being asleep to reality and of awakening into truth. Sleep has become metaphor as much as physiology. The night does not merely restore us. It enters language as one of the basic shapes of human experience. Religious traditions, too, have treated sleep with a mix of suspicion and reverence. In some contexts, excessive sleep was linked with sloth or spiritual dullness. In others, dreams were considered portals, warnings, revelations, messages. Monastic schedules often regulated sleep tightly. Prayer interrupted night. Vigil and rest existed in relation. The body's need for sleep could be accepted, disciplined, or transcended depending on the framework. Yet even the most severe traditions rarely denied the body altogether. They usually just tried to place sleep under meaning, which is one of humanity's favorite hobbies. Literature is full of sleepers and insomniacs. Lovers wake at dawn. Kings cannot sleep. Murderers lie awake. Innocents drift off. Cities sleep uneasily. Ghosts visit in dreams. A person's relation to sleep often signals their relation to conscience, fate, grief, innocence, or power. We instinctively understand that to sleep well implies something about safety, while to lose sleep implies disturbance. The body reveals the psyche in the dark more honestly than social conversation often does in daylight. This honesty can be uncomfortable. Lying in bed removes many distractions. Thoughts arrive that busyness kept at bay. The day's unresolved material steps forward. That is one reason some people fear bedtime more than they admit. Sleep is not only about unconsciousness, it is about the threshold before it, where the mind briefly faces itself. For those with anxiety, grief, trauma, or chronic stress, that threshold can feel like standing in a doorway one is not eager to cross. The dark makes room, and not every mind enjoys extra room. Yet sleep can also be merciful. For the overwhelmed person, it interrupts. For the grieving person, it occasionally softens. For the ill person, it restores in fragments. For the child, it resets the emotional universe. For the tired worker, it ends the day without requiring eloquence. For the heartbroken, it can be the only hour in which thought loosens its grip. Sleep is not always kind, but it is often the nearest thing the body has to a built-in ceasefire. That ceasefire, however, can be sabotaged by one of humanity's most persistent mistakes, pretending we are separate from our conditions. We like to think of the mind as sovereign. We praise willpower, intention, grit. Sleep reminds us that embodied life does not run on ideals alone. If you flood the eyes with light at midnight, flood the bloodstream with caffeine late in the day, flood the mind with stimulation, and flood the schedule with irregularity, the body will respond as a body, not because it is weak, because it is consistent. In this sense, sleep science is less about control than about respect. You do not command the ocean, but you can learn the tide. You do not order the circadian system into obedience, but you can work with its tendencies. This may be one reason the best sleep advice sounds almost humble. Keep a regular wake time. Seek morning light. Reduce bright light late at night. Use the bed mainly for sleep. Limit late caffeine if you are sensitive. Wind down. Address breathing problems. Treat pain. Seek help when sleep is persistently impaired. It is a list built not on domination, but cooperation. And when cooperation fails, compassion becomes essential. Bad sleepers often judge themselves harshly. They think they are doing sleep wrong. They become frightened of bedtime, ashamed of fatigue, embarrassed by naps, irritated by advice, suspicious of hope. But difficulty sleeping does not make a person defective. It makes them human in a body under strain. Sometimes the solution is behavioral, sometimes medical, sometimes psychological, sometimes environmental. Often, some mixture. What matters is dropping the idea that worthy people sleep perfectly and flawed people do not. The nervous system has never respected moral rankings. The same is true for napping. Cultures vary in how they regard daytime sleep. In some places, short midday rest has historical and social legitimacy. In others, it is treated like evidence of collapse. But napping itself is neither virtuous nor shameful. It is a tool. Short naps can restore alertness. Longer naps can satisfy more severe fatigue. Poorly timed naps can interfere with nighttime sleep. Like so much in biology, context decides whether a thing is wise or troublesome. The nap has no ideology. Humans, unlike some animals, cannot truly outrun sleep indefinitely. Under extreme sleep deprivation, the brain begins taking what it can in fragments, whether through microsleeps, lapses, degraded attention, or eventually more serious breakdown. This fact has a certain moral seriousness to it. There are limits, not because the universe is punitive, but because living systems are finite. Sleep is one of the mechanisms by which the body insists on finitude. You may be ambitious, worried, inspired, in love, under deadline, or in denial. The neurons remain unpersuaded. In a way, sleep is democratic. It visits the powerful and powerless alike. CEOs sleep, soldiers sleep, judges sleep, infants sleep, people in grief sleep badly, people in joy sleep deeply. Nations rise and fall while ordinary bodies keep requiring their cycles. Even in war, sleep deprivation becomes a weapon because it attacks something elemental. To deny sleep is to injure cognition at its roots. To restore sleep is to restore agency. There are few functions more basic and more profound, and maybe that is why good sleep feels so intimate. To sleep well is to trust, at least for a while. To trust the room, the body, the absence of immediate threat, the possibility of release. That trust is easier for some than others. History, trauma, stress, illness, and environment all shape it. But when it comes, sleep can feel like a form of temporary belonging. The self lowers its guard, muscles unclench, thought dissolves into stranger material. The night carries you without requiring performance. For a few hours you are not producing, presenting, answering, proving, posting, or defending. You are simply being maintained, which is perhaps the quiet wonder at the center of all 100 facts. Sleep is common, but it is not trivial. It is ordinary, but not simple. It is ancient, but still not fully understood. It can fail in countless ways and heal in countless others. It humbles us because it cannot be rushed, bought in full, or bullied. It can be encouraged, protected, studied, and restored, but not fully conquered. The body keeps this small, nightly sovereignty. So the next time sleepiness arrives in the evening, that slow lowering of focus, that warmth behind the eyes, that soft dimming of the day's hard edges, you might think of it differently. Not as weakness, not as interruption, not as lost productivity, but as a signal from a system that has carried you all day and now requests its turn. A request as old as mammalian life. A request written in hormones, temperature, brain waves, and accumulated wakefulness. A request that says, with more dignity than any notification ever will, enough for now. And if you are someone for whom sleep is difficult, uncertain, delayed, fragmented, or fought over, then perhaps let tonight's final thought be a gentle one. You are not alone in that struggle. Entire fields of medicine exist because night is complicated. Whole libraries exist because human beings have lain awake and wondered why. The answer is rarely one thing. It may be stress, timing, breath, light, mood, pain, habit, hormones, grief, age, work, memory, or simply a nervous system that has forgotten how to trust the dark. But difficulty is not failure. It is a condition, and conditions can change. For now, though, no fixing, no optimizing, no midnight self-improvement campaign. Just this quieter idea that sleep, even when imperfect, remains one of the body's most faithful attempts to keep you whole. Night after night, whether welcomed or resisted, it returns and offers the same ancient bargain. Put the world down for a while, let the senses dim, let thought lose some of its strict shape. Let the hidden crews begin again, the cleaners, the archivists, the stitchers, the breath watchers, the memory sorters, the dream projectionists, the small patient workers of the dark. And somewhere in that long invisible labor, perhaps a little more of you is repaired than you knew. So draw the curtain, put the glowing rectangle away with whatever grace can still be managed. Let the room cool. Let the day become less available. Let the body descend by the old route it has always known. Not perfectly, not every night, but enough. Enough for healing, enough for mourning, enough for the quiet biological miracle of disappearing for a while and returning, somehow, as yourself again.